Yeah, good morning all. Today I am going to discuss with you about the features of C language and what are all its characteristics. So let's start. First, we'll discuss about what is the history of C programming, C language. So, C language is we call it as a structure-oriented programming language, which was developed in Bell Laboratory in 1972 by Dennis Ritchie. C programming language features were derived from the earlier languages such as BCPL, Fortran, Algol, etc. Then C language was invented from implementing Unix operating system. In 1978, Dennis Ritchie and Brian Kernighan published the first edition of C programming language, and it was commonly known as K and RC. Now, in 1983, the American National Standards Institute (ANSI) established a committee to provide a modern, comprehensive definition of C. The resulting definition, the ANSI standard or ANSI C, was completed after 1998. Many of C's ideas and principles were derived from the earlier language B, thereby naming this new language C. And this is the taxonomy of C language. In 1960 it was Algol. In 1967 BCPL language came into the existence. Then in 1970 it was defined and B language came into the existence. Then in 1972 it was traditional C. Then in 1978 it became K and RC. Then in 1989 ANSI C came into the existence. Then in 1990 ANSI slash ISO C was discovered, and then in 1999 C99 was introduced. So this was all the taxonomy of C language. Now we'll see what are all features of C which makes it more popular in comparison to the other languages. Now C is actually a reliable, simple and easy to use language. C is a small block structured programming language. C is also portable language, which means that C programs can be written on multiple platforms with little or no modifications. Now C has one of the largest assortment of operators, such as those which are used for calculations and data comparisons. Although the programmer has more freedom with data storage, the languages do not check data type accuracy for programmers. So why to study C? Then it is a point. So in this we see that in early 1980s C was already a dominant language in many computers world of Unix systems. Since then it has spread to personal computers and then to mainframes. Many software houses use C as a preferred language for producing word processing programs, spreadsheets, compilers and other products. Now C is extremely flexible language, particularly if it is to be used with operating systems. Unlike other languages, C has only 4 or 5 level of precedence. Unlike other languages which have only 4 or 5 level of precedence, C has 15. Now let's talk about the characteristics of C program. Since we all know that C is a middle level language, then we see how middle level language is different from the high and the low. High level languages provide almost everything that the programmer might need to do as already built into the languages, whereas in the middle level languages we don't provide all the built-in functions found as in our high level languages, but we provide all the building blocks that we need to produce the result we want. So in this way we can see that we are not taking all the frameworks or all the built-in functions as they're present in high level languages. Here in building, we just take the basic building blocks, and by using those building blocks we prepare our own program. Whereas in low level languages, they provide nothing other than access to the machine basic instruction sets. So in low level languages, we have only the machine level basic instruction set, जिसका use करके we are going to write our program. So there are few examples related to your high level languages, which is Java and Python. Then in our middle level languages, we can see it is C and C++, and for in low level languages, we have assembler as our programming language. C is having a small size and it has only 32 keywords, and it is extensive use of function calls enables the end user to add their own functions to the library. C library supports loose typing. A character can be treated as an integer or vice versa. So this was all about the characteristics of C program. Also, we have told that C is a structured program, so we can see here what is the difference between a structure oriented and object oriented program, so that we can understand how it is different. C is different from C++ or any other language. So in this type of language, the large programs are divided into small programs which are called as functions, whereas in our object oriented programming, here programs are actually divided into objects. We call them as the name is different in object oriented, we call it as an objects. Here we call it as an functions, whereas in non-structures there is no specific structure for programming this language. Secondly, the prime focus in structure oriented programming is on functions and the procedures that operate on the data, whereas in object oriented our prime focus is in the data that is being operated and not on the functions or the procedures which we apply on the data. Whereas in non-structures we don't have any such kind of focus. Now in structure oriented, data actually moves freely around the system from one function to another function, whereas in object oriented, data is actually hidden and cannot be accessed by the external function. In our structured programming, program structure follows top to down bottom approach, whereas in our object oriented programming, the program structure follows actually bottom up approach. So top down approach is nothing but it is something like we have our main function, and within our main function we will make small functions, separate functions which will do their individual jobs, and those functions will combine together to complete our main program. Whereas in our bottom up approach, we actually make different objects and each object perform its own task, and then we'll combine these all objects to perform our main task of the program. So this was all the difference between our structure oriented and object oriented programming. There are few examples, like C is actually example of structure oriented, which includes Pascal, Algol and Modular 2, and our object oriented may we can see that C++, Java and C# are our programming languages. There are few more characteristics of C program, such as it is a low level programming. Low level programming is also available in our C programming. Then there is a pointer implementation, which is actually very helpful in memory management of our C programming C program. Then it has high level constructs as well embedded. Also it can handle low level activities, and it produces efficient programming and it can be compiled on a variety of computers, which means that it is compatible with different type of system or platforms. Now we are discussing about uses of C languages. So where we can use this C languages, what are all the areas where we can find the C language being in a top priority taken and other languages. So it is basically like we can use it in database systems, also in graphic packages we can see that C languages is being used, then in our word processors, which is widely used in each and every system. So word processors also uses the C language for their development, then the spreadsheets, then our operating system development also we use C language programming, then in compilers as well as in assemblers, also in our network drivers and interpreters. So these are all the fields where we can use our C language. Now we'll come on to the structure of C program. Structure of the C program, as you can see, we have divided into four major categories, where first section is related with the documentation part. After the documentation, it is pre-processing or the statement part. Then after that we have a global declaration section. Then after that we call our the main program, so main function, which includes our local declarations as well as program statements we write in that, under which we can call different sub functions and programs. So we will discuss each and every section of our C program in detail. Let's take an example first to understand this. In this example, in this our first section is our actually what we call as a documentation. So in the documentation, the method of writing any concept is like, we'll have to give our forward slash, then you have to type asterisk key, then write your problem statement. Like in our example, it is the program which accepts a number and display it to the user, and then we close this documentation with the same method. Here we first write asterisk and then a forward slash. So whenever you are writing any documentation of your program, so this would be a key property like forward slash and asterisk. So this you have to include each and every time whenever you are trying to say that we are writing documentation of a particular program. So after that we have preprocessor section. In the preprocessor section we write anything which starts with hash. So here in our program we have taken hash include, and then it is a void, main void, and then after that this main is our main function, and whatever thing we have to write in this main function will start with the curly braces. There are two types of curly braces. One is our open curly braces, which is like this, and this is the closing curly braces. And each and every statement which we write under this main function will end up with the semicolon. So here in our program we are actually trying to accept a number, and then we are displaying that number. So in this we have written int number, where number is our variable which is of integer type, and then we have written a printf scanf statement. So first printf statement is like print please enter a number. So with this function what we are going to do, this printer function will do what, this will print the number, this statement for the user to understand that it has to enter that any number. Then scanf function does what, scanf function has an identifier that which type of integer value is going to be entered. So this is actually the identifier section, and then the variable was our number, which is started with ampersand number. So this is the method of writing a scanf function. And then after that, with the scanf function, whatever data is entered by the user is being read by the program, and then again this printf function will be there, which will be printing the value which was entered by the user. And then in return 0 statement, it will return 0 statement has been entered by, because we are not returning any value by this main function. So return 0 has been entered in this program. Now step by step we will explain this program. Hash include, uh, hash include here, hash include is actually a compiler which actually gets a program from the source file, which is called as the preprocessor. Hash include stdio.h is actually a preprocessor directive, and it is not really a part of our program, but instead it is an instruction to the compiler to make it to do something. So now it tells the C compiler to include the content of a file which is there in stdio.h. Now the compiler knows it is a system file and therefore must be looked for in a special place by the fact that the file name is enclosed by these type of braces. Now we will move on to stdio.h. So what is stdio.h? It is the name of standard library file for all standard and input-output functions. Your program will almost certainly want to send information to the screen and read things from the keyboard. So stdio.h is the name of the file in which the functions that we want to use are defined, such as which are used for reading as well as displaying. The function we want to use to read is called as printf. The actual code of printf will be tied in later by the linker, and then .h portion of the file is the language extension which denote and include file. So in this way, stdio.h is an header file which is stored in our library function, and it is required for mainly to display or to read the information which is entered by the user. Now we'll move on to second instruction, that is our void. Void, the literally means that it means nothing actually. In this case it is referring to the function whose name follows. Void tells to the compiler that a given entity has no meaning and produces no error. It is a kind of blank, we can understand. Okay, so if we write anywhere void, that means that that function will not return any value after executing the statements or whatever thing is there in that particular function. Then it is main. Main is particularly the only function in the program. It is the main function we call it, and a C program is typically made up of large number of functions. Each of these is given a name by the programmer and they refer to each other as the program runs. Also, C regards the name main as a special case and will run this function first, i.e. the program execution starts from the main. We can say that our program execution of C actually starts from main, and under this main we can make any so many types of functions, which we can say that it is user defined functions. And when we are executing our program, C program, then first we are actually giving the preference to the main instead of other functions. Now this void, uh, after void main we have a bracket, and under that we have written void. Now this is a pair of brackets enclosing the word void, keyword void. Now this tells the compiler that the function main has no parameters to pass through the function. Now a parameter to a function gives the function something to work on. So these are actually saying void means that this main function will not passing any parameters or any variable which can we are using in our main program for doing some processing. So in that way this void is showing that it is blank, main is blank, and it is not passing any parameter for further compilation of our program. After that we have braces. This as we have explained in our example, it is, we call it as a uh, opening braces. From here opening braces our main programs section starts. This is a curly bracket, and a name implies braces come in packet of two. For every open bracket in our main program we must have a closing one also. Braces allow us to group pieces of program together, often called as a block. So if we have one program which has open braces and we have not made a corresponding closing bracket of that particular program, then we might get error at the time of compilation. So it is very much required that for each and every opening braces there must be a closing bracket as well, so that the loop gets completed and we have a complete execution process without any error. A block can contain the declaration of a variable used within it, followed by a sequence of program statements. So in this case the braces enclose the working part of the function main. Sorry. After also semicolon marks the end of the variable name or also the end of any declaration statement under the main function. So once we have made our opening braces curly bracket, then after that we start writing the statements of C program, and here we make a point that each and every statement in C program which is listed under main has to be ended up with semicolon. So semicolon character is actually very important, and it tells the compiler that this is the end of the statement. So if the compiler does not find out these characters where it expects to see one, then it definitely will produce an error. I can show you this with an example. So here we go for an online editor. So here in this example, see, this is a program which is written in C language, and here you can see that the main purpose of this program is to print hello world, and here there is only one main program which has is one preprocessor, which is hash include stdio.h, and here we have included the header file as a standard input output function. Why? Because we are using printf function which is under this header file. So we have this preprocessor statement. After that we have called our main program, and in our main program this is the way of calling the main function, this bracket. uh, this kind of bracket. So for creating each and every function, whenever you are calling that function, this is the syntax for calling or defining a function. So here our main function is of integer type, and in that we were doing what, we are calling an hello world printf statement, and after that we are putting a semicolon, so that it compiler should understand that this is the end of that statement, and then we are writing and return 0 statement. Why? Because we are not returning any value from this main function, so we are typing this return 0. Now if you see that if any one place, if I remove this semicolon and if I try to run this program, then see, we will be getting an error which is stating that a semicolon is which is expected before a return is not being printed. So it is clearly indicating you that you have to type a semicolon before, after completion of this statement. Now if I run this program, see, at the console I can see that whatever statement which I have wanted to be printed in our console output is being printed correctly. And also see, it is case sensitive as well. Whatever word which we have typed in capital, it has been printed in capital, and whatever we have typed in small, it has been typed in small only. If I change this hello as HELLO in capital, then after compilation, see, I am getting an uppercase hello word, same as I wanted, I have printed in my printf statement. So thus you can see how important is the semicolon after each and every statement within our main function. Right? Now it is a scanf function. Scanf function is basically we use in our C program for scanning whatever the input is being given by the user. So in other programming language, printing and reading functions are a part of the language, whereas in C, instead they are defined as a standard functions which are a part of language specification but are not part of the language itself. The standard input and output library contains the number of functions for our formatted data transfer. The two which are most useful are scanf, which is scan formatted, and printf is it is a print formatted. So here in our example, if you can see, if I want a scanf, use of scanf, so for that, let's suppose I am taking an variable, let's suppose a. Fine. Now I am giving value to this variable as 10. No, I want user to give value to this variable. How? What is the method? In this scanf function, what I have told you, that first you have to write the identifier, that what kind of variable you are entering. So for that, since our variable a is of integer type, so what identifier should I use? I will use %d, and then cover this with the two double quotes. After that, separated by a semicolon, and then %, and then the variable name. Fine. And then close that bracket and give semicolon. In this way, user can understand that it was a scanf statement. After that, once the user enters the variable value a, then to print that value we use printf statement here, and this will do what? In the very same way it will use the identifier percentage d, put it by double quotes, then comma, and then in printf, to print that variable value we don't need any ampersand, and we directly write a, and then after closing that bracket we'll put semicolon. Now this is our program, and to write the comment documentation for this program, what we are going to do, forward slash, then we put an asterisk sign, fine, and then what we are going to do, we will write the documentation for this small program, which is nothing but accept an integer value and then print the given value, fine, and then again one asterisk and then forward slash. So in this way you can see documentation is being written in our C program. After that there is an preprocessor directive, which is nothing but your hash include, which is under this two codes, and after that we will write our header file which we require for our main program, since we are using a scanf and printf, two inbuilt function of standard input output header file. So we have to include these header file in our this program with the help of this preprocessor directive. Now if we run this program, see here it is blinking and it is asking to enter the value. Let's suppose I have entered 2, then if I do enter, then you can see 2 is printed again. So this was just printf statement was just to make you clear that whatever value you have entered by the help of your scanner function is being printed correctly or not. So here I can understand that you have understood how printf and scanf is being used in our C program. Now we will see the file which are used in a C program. What are the different files which we actually use in our C program? There are 4 major files which we use in our C program. First is our source file, second is our header file, third is our object file, and fourth is our executable file. Now source file, this file contains the source code of the program, and source code is nothing but the program which you type in your this statement, like this whatever this thing you have typed, if you save it in your header in your notepad or in your word processor and save it with .c extension, then that file will become your source file. Now this file contains source code that defines the main function and maybe other functions which are included in your main program. Then your header file. A header file is a file which is with the .h extension, and it also have macro definitions which is shared with other files as well. Now object file. Object file is a file which is containing the object code with the .o extension, which is meaning relocatable format machine code that is usually not directly executable. Object files are produced by the assemblers, compilers or other translators, and they used an input to the linker, which in turn generate the executable file. Now executable files are nothing but the binary executable files are generated actually by the linker, and the linker links the various object files to produce a binary file that can be directly executable. So this is actually the flow of compilation of a C program. Let's suppose first you write your source code, which is nothing but your program, high level program, in the way I have shown you, and you save that file as a .c extension. Then it is a preprocessor program which does what, which converts our source program into expanded code, and this expanded code is then used by our compiler to compile this code into the assembly code, and this assembly code is then further used by our assembler, and this assembler converts this assembly code into the object code, and object code then uses the linker software to link all the other object files which are required in our C program with the libraries, and then it will produce a final executable code which is nothing but the binary file. So in this way you can understand how our C program is being executed, compilation process, how it is being done, and how this executable file is being created. So this was all about our C program. We'll see the further what are all different other things which are included in our C program. So thank you.